Bueno, hola, hola. Esta parte, por supuesto, dándole la bienvenida a todos ustedes. Por aquí se pueden unir. En la parte de abajo nos pueden dejar sus comentarios inicialmente desde donde se unen, desde la ciudad de Toronto o desde otra ciudad de Canadá. Esta vez vamos con un live diferente y quiero que ahorita le den una muy feliz bienvenida a nuestro invitado porque esta vez el live será en inglés. Entonces, estén súper pendientes los temas de hoy. Hablaremos un poco de un tipo de pad para ser designer. No se lo pierdan, no les voy a decir mucho. Obviamente un poco de la experiencia también que tiene nuestro invitado de hoy, que es maravillosa, que por cierto tiene raíces latinas y ahorita lo van a saber de pronto ustedes también. Y finalmente su experiencia, sus contactos para que vayan y lo sigan. Entonces, no se les olvide por aquí para que nos escriban en los comentarios desde dónde se unen. Si tienen alguna pregunta, no la dejen y entiendan que obviamente es un periodo de tiempo pequeño, pero entonces, welcome to ProyectaCanada. And I am very happy with you sharing this time. And this is our first live in English. Thank you for sharing, of course, this time. If you are not watching this video right now, don't forget that it will be saved in our feed. And also, don't forget that all the information it will be after if you are following our guest that is right now waiting for you. Follow him in all the social media. Don't having more time, of course, let me just get into our guest that is just here. Technology right now. I think so that he's coming in just a second. Yes. Perfect.
Hey, how's it going?
Yes. The technology is just working right now. Okay, I say to our audience that welcome to this Proyecta Canada. I want to let you know that this is our first English live here in our channel. That I am very happy having this time with you. Don't have it more time. I know that the people right now know I did a little bit brief introduction in Spanish, but let's start with the most important. What about if you introduce yourself? Let us know your name. I know I don't want to say anything yet. And let us know a little bit more about you. And probably people is curious about your Latin roots. Welcome.
100. Perfect. Sounds good. Well, I appreciate you guys having me on the live, number one. And my name is Henry Rojas. So I'm a BCIN designer here in Ontario, Canada. I've been operating my business in the last maybe almost 8 years now, a little over 8 years. And we run like an architectural building permit firm here. We do a lot of architectural work. We help homeowners, investors, contractors. We do all the plans for them from 2D, 3D, whatsoever there. Even 3D renderings we've done here and there, right? So we provide the full service. We work with engineers. We work with the city. So our specialties, like while we do architectural, we do work with a lot of the other consultants involved. So we're more of the project managers on a lot of times, right? So that's what really our company is about here. We service all over Ontario, where majority of our work is in the Toronto region. As many of you might be familiar with Toronto, we do go over like 2 hour, 3 hour drive up north, down south to the east and west. Just because for me, a little bit about me there, I like to explore different areas. If you're any sort of industry, whatever you are, architect, engineer, whatsoever, it's always good, at least from my point of view, to explore other areas and see how they operate. It's for your own benefits, your own education, and it makes you a better designer and architect, engineer, because now you know more from different sources,
That's
right?
it.
And a little bit about my Hispanic background. So my parents, both of them were from Peru, Lima. They moved here a couple years ago, almost 35 years, got together here. I was born and raised here. My first language was actually Spanish, believe it or not. But then when you get into the school system here, they teach you how to be English. So they got me into like ESL, got me in more in English, and then more of I kind of lost that accent. So you can tell I don't have that Spanish accent anymore.
Ah,
But no, obviously I'm trying to learn Spanish again, so be more helpful for people. At least for my family, also trying to learn architecture back in Peru. They come to me for some advice there too. So 100%. That's a little bit about me there.
but that is good. We had something in common. I am trying to learn English. Then we can share something. I can share Spanish and you can share English. Okay, that is great. As our guest say, he has a lot of experience going into this path about building experience, building permit, doing this kind of job. Of course, don't forget going to the end to this video because he will share all the social media. If you want to share more or probably contact him, don't forget to go until the end or just when we are published this. Okay, I know that people is asking too many things probably and they are curious about probably our first question. We are having 3 questions because we don't have a lot of time, but let's start with the first one. If you don't mind, you can just share with us how was your journey into becoming a BCIN, and probably let us know first because a lot of people doesn't know what is this mean. What did this mean? What is BCIN and how you become as a BCNA designer?
Right. So number one thing is here in Ontario, which is a little bit different than other provinces in Canada, is that Ontario has something called BCIN, which represents the Building Code Identification Number. It's nothing really too special with architecture. It's just more of an identification number, your ID, which is what we call it there, right? And what they've actually determined here in Ontario is that BCIN designers are able to design a certain level of building. For example, we all know architects can design any building, as small as a house, as big as a building. They can do whatever they want. With a BCIN designer, we have some restrictions. Sometimes we can only, design up to 3 stories or only a big mansion, like 6,000 square feet, right? Now, in terms of BCIN designers here in Ontario, like there are different levels of it. Some designers I know of, they have the small building, small housing build BCIN, which just means they can do all the houses in Ontario, all the small single family homes, maybe basement apartments, fits under that umbrella, but that's what they're specialized in. For myself, I have something with small buildings, so I can do a lot of the bigger buildings here, like the downtown area, the big 3 stories, commercial buildings in the downtown areas of Toronto, Hamilton, and all the other neighboring cities. And that's where we focus in a little bit more with our business here. But a little bit more on BCN because there's so much I can talk about BCN.
I know.
Number one, number one thing is too with the if you're familiar with Ontario Building Code, which I know a lot of people aren't, there is a page in the building code, and maybe I'll share it with you guys a little bit later. There's a page there that tells you which BCIN you can get. You don't have to get architectural BCIN. There is structural BCIN, there's plumbing BCIN, there's HVAC BCIN, there's different requirements of BCIN. Now, overall, in my business, I don't have all of them, to be quite honest. All I have is the architectural one because I have my engineers work with me on my projects for those items. Doesn't mean that you don't have to get them. I know a designer right now, she got all the BCNs, so she can do a house for everything. She can do all the plumbing, she can do all the HVAC, she can do all the architectural. And that's really good for a homeowner who's looking to do a big renovations. They don't have to hire like an engineer, they don't have to hire somebody else. They can only contact you and you have all the requirements, all the qualifications. So you're acting as if you're the architect and the project manager for this small house. So it's beneficial there. Now, what that really means on getting to B Sands is a little bit different story there, right? This is the gold mine here. Getting to B Sand is not easy. There's a lot of testing to do, and the way even living here in Canada all my life, it really comes down to understanding the interpretation. Okay, the interpretation is so important here. Obviously, the language barrier is one thing for some people, but it's the interpretation. When I read something, it can be completely different. Same thing with the city, right? We're reading the same piece of paper, the same note, but it can mean 2 different things. And that's mainly the big reason why a lot of people can't pass the BCIN because the BCIN test will tell you exactly like here's option A, B, C, D. Which one is the answer? And you could read it different ways. It's not wrong, but it's not the right one that the city has determined,
Of
right?
course.
So that's what makes it challenging a lot of times. For myself, to be completely transparent, I didn't pass my first time around taking the test. I passed it the second time around, and it happens because a lot of times you're just trying to understand how the testing works, right? Now, in Ontario, to get qualified for BSIN already, just to like start designing tomorrow, you need to pass 2 tests. Number one is a design test, is what they call it, and number two is a legal test. So you have to understand how to design the building, the code requirements, and then the legal aspects of it. You need building insurance, you need professional insurance, you need all these other legal parts of it which to be quite honest, it's a little bit easier than design. That's at least my
Hold
personal
on.
experience, and my other colleagues that taken the test before were all saying the same thing. The legal part of it isn't the hardest; it's very straightforward. It's the design part that's difficult, right? It becomes very vague and interpretation sort of focus on a lot of things there. So back to the whole point there again, BCIN. All you really need to do is get two of them to start designing here in Ontario, Canada. Then you can submit to the city. You can sign off their drawings. Some of you are familiar that you may have the architect stamp, right? But
Yeah.
here in Canada, we don't have an official stamp. We have a signature. So on your drawings, you will have like a little box that says Henry BCIN signature. That's it, right? And that's what tells the city that you understand the building code and that you are submitting the application, knowing what to do with the Ontario Building Code and how to design it properly. So that gives them more confidence than as if the homeowners, because keep in mind too, here's a little tip here. The homeowners in Ontario, they can submit for permits without BCIN. Now, what does that mean? Any homeowners, even I own a couple houses here myself, I can submit it without my BCIN. The city will accept it. They will review it, but they will not issue the permit because a homeowner doesn't know how to design properly. They don't understand the building code. So yes, they can submit it to the city, but it will never really be approved because it's not the standard of architectural design. So this is where they come to us and they tell us, can you help me out? Can you stamp off of my drawings or can you redo the whole project myself? Like those are sort of some of the conversations we have over the years where some owners think that they can submit it properly, but they can't. So they come to people like us to do the drawings for them. That's
Okay.
one thing to keep in mind of, right?
Okay.
Um,
That is amazing, all this information. Okay, keep going.
it's a lot. It's honestly, I've been in this industry for 8 years, and I've been doing so many different things across Ontario. I can talk about this all day, but I know we're strict on time in there, so I'm trying to get to the key points, right? Uh,
That's perfect.
One thing too to keep in mind as well is the what they call it. It's called BCIN directories, is what they call it. So if you go online to Google right now, there's something called BCIN directories. It's a paid service, so we pay a couple bucks a month to this online website, and your name or company will get listed on that whole platform. And what happens is that a lot of times the city or homeowners will have a problem with their construction because number one thing is we have homeowners here that do construction without permits. That's common. They will do construction. Then they get caught by the city, and the city tells them, hey, listen, you have to get building permits for this. Go to the city and talk to them. They go to the city, they talk to the city officials, and the city official will actually tell them, listen, you have to hire an architect or you can hire a BCIN designer. They don't care whoever. Now, most homeowners will hire a BCIN designer, to be quite honest. We've just seen that being the normal in the last couple of years because to them, in the mindset, it's cheaper to get a BCIN designer than it is to get a legal or licensed architect. It's just the way the system works here. So they look for a BCIN designer. The city provides them this website I'm talking about, BCIN directories, and on that website, they can pick, they'll email everyone on the website. I sometimes get emails because I'm still part of that over the years. I'll get a random email a couple days and just saying, "Hey, Rojas Empire, I have a project for you. Can you do this for me?" They don't know my name. They've never met me. They just saw my name on the website and decided to email me, right? So it's also a good way to kind of get connected with people there. You pay a little bit, like 20 bucks a month, right? Just to get that additional, recognition there, right? So, those are a couple of things to recognize when you start getting your BCIN. Obviously, getting that's one thing. Getting the clients is a different story, right? That's the tricky part. We have some people, my colleagues in my circle here, they all have to be sand, but getting the clients has been very challenging for them, especially in this economy. So what do you do to stand out? That seems to be the biggest problem. What makes you different than the other guy or the cheaper guy or the person who's working in their basements, right? That's been a little bit challenging at times. But, at the end of the day, it's really down to education and experience, right? It all comes down to understanding what the code is asking for and how you can help your clients. At the end of the day, I help my clients whichever way it is. They come talk to me. I tell them, listen, this is what I would do, right? But based on your budget, maybe I'm not the best person for it. We have an 8 people operation here. My price might be too high, but I know somebody else who has a BCIN who would be perfect for this job, right? I don't mind losing business as long as I'm connecting in with a proper professional in my circle that has your BCIN and understands the building code. Right.
Okay. That is
But
amazing. I will do like a kind of brief summary of those key points, like you say, which are quite important. You give us a lot of information. This is, I know that it's very short time, but you give us a lot of information. You give us a lot of information about the levels like we have in this kind of certification, of course, how the education and experience is very important, how it's challenging the interpretation about LBC, because I know a lot of people is dealing with this and they say I cannot do it, but if I and an expert, how is Henry doing, is dealing with this, don't get up. You can just keep doing. Of course, I am taking notes. Don't worry. And
perfect,
I
perfect.
hope that you guys who are behind this screen are taking notes as well. Of course, all the requirements that is part of this knowledge as well, which is important, of course. Also, part of those levels, how Henry say, how are the restrictions? No, the restriction also is very important. Okay, this is a quite bit. Going to the next one, talking about OBC, like you say, because a lot of people say, okay, you are talking about OBC, how it's challenging, the restriction, how it will be, the requirement. But what about Henry? If you let us know probably a couple advice how they can start, how it will be a good first step to go into the OBC.
Yeah. So how I, like, personally from how I got started in houses, right? So some of my first clients in my career were just small houses, in my neighborhood that some of the clients wanted me to kind of look into, help them like get a renovations done, maybe break down the kitchen wall or do a house addition is what we call it here, extension, house addition. Now, it's not a very big project, but at the end of the day, it helps you understand what's required to do this type of level of work. So when we're looking at houses here in Ontario, Canada, in the building code, what we're focusing on is Part 9 of the building code. So right away, when we're talking about house, I think about, okay, Part 9 of the building code, we need to work on that. But here's another thing too, because, and again, we'll talk about a little bit later on how every building code's a little bit different there. But the main two things you have to look at is either Part 9 for small houses or buildings, or Part 3 for large buildings. If you're really doing the big commercial ones like Walmarts, or you're doing the big ones like skyscrapers. Part 9 is mostly what we're dealing with, like 80% of the time, to be quite honest. But here's another part. Part 11, part of the building code there, is that it helps you with renovations. So let's say, for example, you're building a brand new home in Ontario. You have to use Part 9. No matter what, you have to use Part 9. When you're doing renovations in Ontario, you can use Part 9, but you're also allowed to use Part 11. And Part 11 helps you with less restrictions. They're not as nitpicky a little bit like Part 9. Part 9 tells you to do this, Part 11 tells you to do this little. So it does help in the grand scheme of things. Believe it or not, it's helped me a few times with some of my bigger projects, and I saved my clients tens of thousands of dollars because of Part 11. Sorry, I got called there. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, Part 11 has helped me save so much money for my clients because it's less restrictive than Part 9. So just keep that in mind. So back to the whole small house. We're working on a small house. We look at Part 9. We look at the requirements there. A lot of things that come into my mind is that it just depends on what the owners are doing. If they're doing a house addition, we're talking about brand new walls, brand new roof, brand new plumbing, HVAC, room sizes, right? So we're really focusing on those parts of the building code. And again, I know Part 9 is pretty huge, to be quite honest. It's a lot of pages, but things to look out for is like what your client is looking for. If you're looking for stairs, they're on part 9.8. If you're looking for room sizes, 9.5, if I remember correctly. And fire escapes and fire separations, part 9.10. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, right? You do this so much, so often, it gets in your head. But yeah, those are part of the building codes that you have to be familiarized with, right? At the end of the day, it really just depends on what the project is and what you need to do for that project. A lot of times it's really just the interpretation part where even for myself being here 8 years, there are still things that I don't understand or I'm not completely sure about. So I have my mentor. I've had my mentor for about 8, 9 years too. He was my first boss back all the way almost 10 years ago now. And him and I will come on a phone call, one day and just be like, hey, buddy, I'm just working on the building code thing. How do you read this or how do you interpret this, right? I'm reading it this way and here's my understanding. And we just go back and forth for a little bit. In the last couple of years, we've done it almost every other day. Obviously, of course, you guys are familiar, and maybe I think I should mention it at the start. The new building code that's been released in 2024. That's been the biggest change so far in the last couple of years because in the past in Ontario, they wouldn't do a new building code. The last new building code was back in 2012,
Okay.
and between 2012 and 2024, there were just some amendments, some minor little changes here and there. But 2024, they released a brand new one that changed over 2,000 things in the building code. So now I bought like two new building codes. You'll see behind me right here the
Yeah.
blue ones are the old building codes, and the top ones here are the brand new ones, right? So
Okay.
we had to buy them. We had to educate ourselves again to see, like, listen, I've been doing this for 8 years. I'm familiar with the old ones, but now the new ones, I have to teach myself again, right? So that's one thing to be careful on moving forward. As of April this year, April 1st, 2025, you have to use the new ones. You cannot use the old ones that some people may be using today. I've talked to some people already and they're still using the old
Yeah.
ones. And I'm like, you can't get rid of them. I don't get rid of them because I'd like to keep it,
Yes.
but just to buy the new ones. It's a couple $100. It's expensive, but you have to use these ones moving forward if you're working in Ontario here. So just keep that in mind there. But sorry, back to the whole part nine situation. I know a lot of designers get into like the whole houses first.
Hmm.
They start with part nine, they work on that. They're trying to educate themselves a little bit. And I wish I had a little cheat sheet for you guys, but really I've been doing this for so long. I just, as soon as I see the project, I know exactly where to go of. So I'm really just trying to find a program or some sort of, I guess, method to help my fellow designers in understanding, hey, listen, so here's my idea, and again, I'm letting you guys know today, first time, because I've talked about this a few times with my mentor, but I never really talked about it out loud here. I'm trying to create some sort of program here where some designers have a project that they're working on first day, and they come talk to me. They have a meeting with me. They talk to me about their project, and then me and that person will go, one by one, saying, "Hey, listen, it's a house. This is what you're going to need to look into. Part nine, this section, this section, this section, this section.
Yeah.
This is what I think you need to look at, right?" And from there, that's a good starting point for them. Obviously, I'm not going to know everything because I'm not part of the project, but they'll tell me enough that can help them guide through that whole process. So they're not wasting too much time on looking at things on part nine that's not part of the project at all. Right. But a little bit, sorry, I know I rambled on a little bit about part nine, but part 11
Yeah,
is
this is
something
part.
you perfect. Part 11 is really what you need to look into. Obviously, it's a little bit complicated, even for myself sometimes. Part 11 is a little bit tricky to work with. But once you
That's right.
understand it, it's going to save you so much effort on your side as a designer and obviously save money on the client side. Just as a little tip there, what was it? It was if you're working on part nine and you're working on a small house, you're going to be looking into table residential occupancy, and you'll tell there's a
Okay.
table there. If you guys are, I'm sure some of your architects have been looking into it a little bit, but there's a table there, and you'll see a chart that says C 105, C 85, a bunch of C numbers, and those are related to part nine. For
Hmm.
example, the biggest problem here in Ontario, believe it or not, is the ceiling height. How tall is the ceiling here in the basement? Because there's so many owners here. Believe me, there's a lot
There's
of
not
work here in
part.
Ontario.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of work here where a lot of people are doing like basement apartments. That's been the
Mm.
most common thing here in Ontario in the last couple of years, and it's going to get more projects like that in the next couple of years. I foresee. So the biggest issue is the ceiling height in the basement. A lot of times it's too small. Part nine will tell you it's got to be this tall. Part 11 will tell you, hey, listen, you can do this small because it's an existing building. And I still have designers in my network here that don't understand that. They don't like to use Part 11 because, hey, it should all be new construction. I
Mhm.
say no because
Fair
it's
enough.
an existing house. You're allowed to use the renovation part of it, right? So why does that matter? Because your clients don't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars into lowering the basement to get the ceiling height. Saves them already like $40,000 on underpinning is what we call it here. So just making sure like you have to utilize as much as part 11 as you can. Once you look at part 9, look at part 11 right away, saying, okay, listen, what can we do with part 11? How can I add it to my design? Right? That's usually how I work it a lot of times. I look at part 11 almost every single time because I don't want to touch part 9. I used to do custom homes back in 2017, 2018,
Yeah.
and we always had to use part 9. And it was good because it was a brand new build. We had a lot of control over the new form, the new house.
That's true.
With older buildings, it's tougher to kind of work around the structure, right? We already have the building shell, we don't have much room to play with. So we have to make use of every little space. We have to use Part 11. So that's something to keep in mind for these projects, right? It just comes down to what your project really is there.
Okay, that is great. And first of all, don't forget get the new version 2025. Don't forget, don't keep going or don't keep working in the old version. And as Henry say, for 9 and 11, it will be a first step to go into this OBC. And the last question about the people he's having is about building permits. But I want to just ask it in a different way. I know that you are doing building permits daily, I will say. But what about if you told us how is a building permit day on your day, in your experience? How is dealing, how you are just preparing in a day that you are going to submit a building application? Let us know from this point of view.
Yeah, so I think the first step here, and to make sure everyone understands it correctly, is that there are a lot of people here in Ontario that do not provide the application service. So we'll have some architects or some BCIN designers that say, hey, listen, I'll do the architectural drawings and give it to the homeowners, and the homeowners will submit the application. You have to be very clear and like, are you submitting the application for the homeowner or are you just doing the drawings? That changes your price as well. Obviously, your time is valuable. So you have to be very careful there. A lot of homeowners still think that the architect or BSAN designer have to submit on their behalf. So just be very careful on that, number one. Number two is, on a day-to-day basis when it comes to the application itself, the way I see it is that we're working with other engineers, other consultants, other people involved. I have to call every single one of them up and say, hey, listen, where's my drawings? Where's my documentations? I have to get all the documentations to me because I'll be the one submitting that form to the city. Now, after COVID back in 2020, 2021, a lot of cities did transfer over to the online submission.
Yes.
So a lot of things were submitted online. Some cities were still doing like the hard copy, so you have to submit the paper version to the city. Even during COVID, we still have to do that. I had to travel 2 hours with my big drawing to put it at the front door of the city hall.
Yes,
I
that's right.
and I was scared because I thought somebody would take the drawings, but no, luckily nobody took it. But like,
That is
imagine
the
two
first thing
hour,
I mean.
yeah. So that's scary. But now we're in a better spot. A lot of cities have transferred to online. Some of them are still paper copies. It's not too bad, but they are slowly moving to online. So it saves you some time. Back in 2017, when I started my career, I had to go there all the time in person, talk to them face to face, submit everything. If I missed one piece of paper, they will not take it. I have to go back to the office, get that one piece of paper, and then come back, and hopefully there's not a lineup or they're not closed, right? So a lot of complications when you're submitting in person. But when it comes to online, it becomes fairly simple. I have all the drawings and documentations from the engineers and consultants. I put them all into one folder. I submit online to the city. Simple. The one thing they'll ask me for is application fee. So keep that in mind too when it comes to application fees, because I know it's very tricky sometimes. The city will not know how much to charge you at the first time around. When you make your application, they're going to be like, Henry, we didn't look at your project yet, but you have to pay the minimum $300 Canadian, right? Just to get started. And then after we review the drawings, we'll tell you how much the permit cost will be.
Yes.
I've had it sometimes like to be an extra $2,000, $5,000, $7,000. It just depends on how big the building is, right? For small houses and renovations, we've seen it to be like maybe $1,000 Canadian. It's not that bad, to be quite honest. But you have to make sure, are you paying for that or is the client paying for that? We always make sure the client pays for that. So just be careful. These are small little things I'm mentioning because I've been in a situation where the clients assume it was part of the fee, so I lost a
Okay.
thousand
Oh,
dollars.
right.
So, be
Yes.
you have to be very clear with the clients, like what are you taking care of as the BCIN designer or as the architect there. For us and my company, a little bit about that is like we break down our services. Like there's 10 different items. I see a lot of designers today still write down, you know, um, what's called architectural services, $2,000. That's it.
Yeah.
What's part to $2,000? I want to understand what you're taking care of for me, right? There's no contract. Some designers just put that and that's it. We break it down to be like we deal with the zoning, we deal with the application, we deal with the design drawings, the permits, the engineers. I break it down so we're not missing anything. So make sure you guys have that on your contracts, your quotes, or how you talk to some of the guys here in Ontario, making sure that you protect yourselves, right? So keep that in mind. But sorry, back to the whole application thing. Yeah, so It is a day-to-day basis, and it's not just the
Yeah.
application itself. Submitting for the permits is fairly easy. It's the back and forth. So when you submit for permits here in Ontario, depending on how big the building is, it will take a number of days.
Mhm.
For a small house, like what most designers do, a small house will take 10 business days. So two
Yeah.
weeks to get back to you. A bigger building, like a small building in downtown Toronto, will take about 3 weeks or 15 business days. By the way, guys, this timeline I'm talking about, it's in the building code. It's under,
Yeah.
what was it, Division C. On the backside of the Division C, it's in there. That being said, that is a building code rule, but a lot of cities do not follow that rule at all. They'll be like, okay, Henry, it's been 2 weeks, but we're so busy right now, we can't get to you until 2 more weeks. So
Okay.
that really frustrates a lot of designers because they're like, well, the building code says here 2 weeks, but why are you telling me 4 weeks? Because the city gets to decide based on their volume of work. This is why when you
Oh,
submit for permits, it's so important what time of the year do you submit. We've seen at
oh,
times where we submit it in December, and because of all the holidays and everyone on vacation, it's a bad time to submit because now adds like 3 or 4 weeks because everyone's on vacation or they're low staff for now, right? Or you submit, when was it? Here in Canada, a lot of people go on vacations in July and August. So a lot of their kids come out on June and everyone goes on vacation in July and August. So if you submit in a June, right before summer, you might get delayed because all the people, all the city officials are on vacation with their kids somewhere, right? So
okay,
those
that is great.
yeah, those are two timings we've seen. Like, okay, we can expect another month before we get any answers because everyone's so busy. So right now, I think it's like April. We're going to May right now. Now is a decent time to submit because we know they're going to be looking into it. But just keep that in mind when it comes to timing. It's never going to follow the building code, even though it's there. It says it. It's never going to follow that time. We never believe it. But more importantly, now that we talked about time, it's the back and forth.
Oh,
So
yes, of course. Why not?
yeah, what usually what happens is, let's say for example, yeah, it's 2 weeks and they email you back. As the BCIN designer or as the applicant, because they will never email anyone else, they will only email the applicant. So if you're not providing the
Yeah.
application service and the homeowner is, they will email the homeowner, not you. So just be careful with that. So let's say you are the applicant, they'll email you after 2 weeks saying, hey Henry, we reviewed the file, we have a couple questions. They give you a formal letter that says, review letter from the city of Hamilton or Toronto, and it tells you A, B, C, D, all the comments or concerns they have about your application. Now, to be quite honest, some of them are, sometimes they miss something on the drawings, or sometimes it's not clear to them what's going on with the project. And what I mean by that is that your drawings have to be very detailed.
Mhm.
Here's where we get a lot of like confusion with the city because the city doesn't want to take liability. They don't want to be responsible for anything that they assume. So they'll just tell the designer, hey, listen, this detail you provided is not good enough. You have to give me more information about this, right? This is where the technical side of the architectural world, you need to put more
Yes.
details and more information, right? Um, and again, we've taken hours sometimes with my team to create all these construction details for our side. Like we have a 200-page document here with every single detail we worked on in the last 8 years. And so
Wow.
when they ask us for something, we're like, okay, pull it from this file, pull it from there, and send it to them. That's it, perfect. Or sometimes they ask us for something very brand new that we have never seen before, and then we have to create that detail from scratch. But again, when it comes to the city reviews, the way I've operated today is
Yes.
I will sit down with them. They'll send me the letter today, and I'll be like, okay, let's sit down. I
One
want to
more
sit down and
time.
talk to you about this. Yeah, let's sit down and talk about all your comments so I understand 100% of what you're looking for. We've seen it with other designers where they take it at face value and they start doing all the comments without
Uh-huh.
talking to the city. So then
Okay.
they do the comments based on what they know or understand. Then they resubmit it. They wait another 2 or 3 weeks, and the city comes back with, "Hey, you
It's
didn't
not.
change anything here. This is the wrong way. I did like we should have talked about this 3 weeks ago." So a lot of times with the city, it's just trying to understand where they're coming from, right?
Yeah.
They can't read your mind. I can't read your mind. We have to sit down and talk about this face to face to have a better understanding. And that comes back to the building code. It's all about interpretation. Maybe in Toronto, they read it one way. In a
Uh,
different city in Ontario, they read
There's
it a different
another.
way. It's a different way, right? It's not anyone's fault, technically, because it's still under the building code. It's how different cities interpret it, right? So if you
Uh-huh.
work in
That's
different
right.
cities, just be careful with that because that's going to happen. That's happened to us. That still happens today. We have multiple projects over Ontario, and none of the cities are really in line with each other.
Yeah.
So it's like you're
Okay.
working with different building codes. It's an Ontario building code, but every city has their different versions. So be very careful on that. But yeah, back on the application. Yeah, we talked about timing there. We talked about some, back and
Yeah.
forth a little bit, right? The biggest problem there is that there is no timeline for the second or third review.
That's
So,
right. Okay.
you resubmit it and you're like, oh, it was only 3 comments. They should get back to me in a few days. Nope,
No.
that's not how it works.
Back
You
up,
get,
over.
you're from the top of the line all the way back to the bottom of the line.
Oh,
Okay, guys? The
God.
longer you take to get back to them, the lower you're going to be in the line, right? They have a pile of paperwork. So,
Mhm.
they're not like a business. In a business, like like the way I operate, if it's like 1 or 2 comments, sure, I'll push a project to the side to do it for you and then send it back right away. I can do that. The city is not
Okay.
a business. They go first come, first serve. So be very prepared that when you resubmit it, you could be waiting another 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks to hear back from them again. This is why we don't like to waste time assuming on the letter. We want to sit down with them and know 100%, and then we email them back.
Yeah.
I
That's
email
right.
them back
So,
saying, "Hey, listen, Bob, this is what we talked about. This is what we understand from the building code. This is what we're going to do. Any problems? Nope.
no.
All right." Then we revise the drawings and we send it back to city, and 99% of the times it's okay, right? So it just comes down to communications. A lot of times with the building code, it's all about communications. It's all about different ways of thinking about it, right? Sometimes you have to be very creative in a way. But this is where I go back to my mentor. Obviously, I've asked him hundreds of thousands of questions over the years just to pick his brain a little bit because maybe he doesn't know and maybe I know and maybe we just talk about it a little bit and we find the answer together. I would say for you guys, like find somebody here, like somebody like me or somebody else here that knows more Spanish, obviously, than me, that understands the building code and can give you some feedback back and forth. A conversation is what you really need to do, right?
Okay. That is right. I just want to just highlight 3 words like you tell us: communication, education, and experience. And the last one, talking about business, I know that Henry, you are having your own business. And what about if you share with us a little bit what are you doing and how we can contact you?
Yeah, so a little bit of what we're doing right now, like back when I started my business 2018, 2019, we started doing like single family homes, we started doing renovations, we started doing new buildings, new houses in Ontario. Today in 2025, we've removed all of that. We don't do any of that stuff anymore. We only do investor focused projects. So what does that mean in Ontario? That means that we're taking a lot of these houses and making 2, 3, 4, 5 units inside a house. Ontario has a problem right now where we call it like the housing crisis here, where there's not enough houses, there's not enough buildings for all the people that we have. So the Ontario government's allowing us to kind of add more units to a house. So in the past, you see a big house, you assume one family. Today, that one big house could be 6 families in there.
Oh,
It's like an apartment building,
okay.
right? So this is where we focus most of our business in because we have investors buying these things and making as many units as we can. So that's where we focus in. Obviously, we operate in the Toronto area. We work in different areas of Ontario. We've done a lot of things. We've done over, what was it, 800 projects, 800 unit conversions there in the last couple of years. So we're very familiar with the building code, very familiar with size, was like 50 different municipalities throughout Ontario, cities. But if there's anything that you guys can take away from this, you can always contact me with some questions or concerns. Like I always love to contact people about questions or concerns I have. One of the biggest things in Ontario is that there's not a lot of like in-person meetings. I've been a part of different associations here. Nobody really does in-person face-to-face. I would
Yeah.
love it that we all get into a room together, have a drink or have dinner together, and just talk about building codes, talk about Ontario's, building process and permits and all that. That's fun to me. I enjoy talking about this stuff. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of groups like that. So I created my own group, as you guys may have seen there, Code. We have a Facebook group, we have an Instagram account there. I try to post there as much as I can about my experiences. Obviously, I don't know everything, but I post enough that you guys can understand, hey, listen, Henry made this mistake. I want to learn from that. I want to do better. Right. And that's what I want for you guys. Right.
Okay, that is great. Okay, Henry, thank you. I will switch a little bit in Spanish, how we say. Sorry for that. But if you are here at the end of this video, if you just arrived to here, I will just summarize a little bit points. In that way, you can just rewatch this. And of course, go into all the social media about Henry. If you are missing the social media about Henry, don't worry. Once we just share this video, we will post this with all the information, then a bit recommendation, go into his social media because he is just sharing a lot of videos about OBC or things like we are talking about. Okay. Hablando en español, por supuesto, muchas gracias a nuestro invitado Henry Rojas, que nos habló el día de hoy de la certificación BCIN, Designer, el OBC, nos dio muchos consejos y por supuesto los invito a seguirlos. Si ustedes se perdieron y llegaron solo hasta este momento, vayan otra vez, compartan y por supuesto déjennos sus comentarios. Okay, Henry, that is great. Thank you for sharing all this information. Oh my God, I take a lot of notes about these points. For sure, I had another invitation for you, and you can share probably with our community, like you say, in person, because really we appreciate your time. We appreciate the videos that you are sharing in the social media. I know that you are very active in Facebook as well, because I have read a lot. I think so. You too, also.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. You see, I follow you. That is
100%.
great. Then if you there behind this screen, you are not follow Henry, this is the time to follow him in all the social media. If you have more questions, for sure you can contact him, or probably you can let us know, okay, I had a question for Henry. We can meet all together, probably in person. We don't know how it's coming or what is coming. Just stay tuned because something can be coming. Henry, had a good night. Thank you. Muchas gracias. Thank you for everyone who was watching this video. Thank you for all the people who joins and they are not speaking Spanish and we are not speaking well English. So sorry about that. And let's see in the next video. Don't forget just sharing the Henry accounts. And if you are missing something, read our description. Then bye and
Sounds
having
good.
a good night.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye.